What is up, my people? Welcome to Escape Plan Day 21. Today we're going to be talking about the beginning, how you start the call, right? Most people mess up a sales call in the first 2 minutes. Not because they're bad at sales, but because they're giving away control right from the start, right? What I want you to think of in terms of sales is basically we have a straight line, right? The beginning of the call is here, the end of the call is here. We need to keep them on this straight line so we can get the sale, which is helping them best, right? Helping them come to a decision that allows them to reach their goals. Now, for us to do that, we need to keep them on the straight line, keep them on what actually matters. Because if you do not start the call well, we are going to veer so far off the straight line that is going to be extremely hard to come back on, right? Now, in short, what is framing? Framing is just setting the expectations, right? And I'll walk you through in this video how to show up to the call calm, confident, and how to build quick rapport, and most importantly, how to set the frame that makes the rest of the call feel extremely natural for both you and the prospect. Now, why does this matter in the first place, right? Sales is leadership, right? That's what it is. It's about being a leader, someone that people can follow, right? You're leading someone into a decision to make that will help them best. They're not going to listen to someone who is a pushover. They're not going to listen to someone who is, letting the prospect run the show, right? You need to lead. So when you start the call, you have to remember the prospect is still a bit skeptical potentially, or unsure, maybe even distracted. Who knows? Your job is to set the tone, lead the conversation, and make them feel safe and like they can be honest with you, most importantly. Think of it like being a doctor, right? When you go to the doctor, you don't show up asking, so what medication can I be expecting, right? Straight away. You don't ask that. They ask you questions. Then from those questions, they diagnose what the problem is, and then they recommend a solution based on everything you've told them, right? And framing allows you to do that, right? Sales is like a doctor approach as well, right? So how do we build quick rapport? Because it's super important, right? The first lesson I want to tell you about when you start a call, do not talk about the weather. This is for some reason something everyone does, especially on Zoom. When you jump on a call, you're going to be speaking to people from all over the world. So a lot of people ask, like, oh, where are you based? How's the weather over there? Don't do that. For the love of God, please do not do that. Because going back to the sales psychology episode that we spoke about a few days ago, quite a while back now, but going back to there, you are already put in a position when you jump on a sales call where they are looking for a reason to put you in the same box as every other slick, sleazy salesperson they may have encountered in the past. And the issue is, if you talk about the weather, which is something extremely common that salespeople do, you are going to be put in that box straight away, which then sets the tone incredibly awfully for the rest of the call, because they'll subconsciously remember, I remember speaking to this guy, he was a bit of an asshole, didn't really like him. Okay, so that's obviously not what you want to do. You want to be one of one. You want to be different. So don't force the beginning of the call. When you both jump on, what I typically like to do is, hey, let's say John. Hey John, how's it going? Cool, awesome. Whereabouts you based? Right? You've been having a good week so far. Things like that. Done. I am done after that. I'm not talking about the weather. I'm not talking about, does he have a family? Does he have kids? Nothing. Literally just simple. Where are you based? How are you doing? Been having a good week. That's it. Right? If even that. You don't want to do anything else. You want to keep it light. But you want to be real. Right? You don't want to force it, like I said. Avoid asking, like I said, about weather, about traffic, about complimenting their background, right? Because, they might have a background. Avoid that, right? Because that's all filler. That's all nonsense. And what we want to do is focus on building connection, just by being calm, being actually curious, right? When I jump on a call with someone, I'm actually curious where they're from. I just want to know, right? Because I find it quite interesting. And I'm present, and my tone shows that I'm curious as well. Again, we're going to get into tonality in another episode, but that's pretty much the beginning of the call, right? Now, going back into the frame, right? This is the important part. Again, why do we frame? Again, framing, it's not about like being polite or answering their questions entirely. Like I said, it's also about control, keeping them on that line. If you do not frame the call, the prospect is going to start asking questions. They are going to derail the whole process. They're going to hide important information that they need to tell themselves or hear from themselves, say. And they're probably going to leave the call more confused than they were when they jumped on, right? And again, that's not what we want to have at all. What we want, and the reason why we frame, is to help them know what to expect out of the call, to allow them to relax, right? And understand, okay, this is what's happening. Okay, I can chill. To trust that you're leading this conversation for their benefit, most importantly, right? Because I'll show you with examples of how to do framing. As you can see on my screen, there's a couple different options. With framing, it basically is going to help them trust you that, okay, I need to do what he said or she said, what this call is going to be about and how it's going to go. I need to listen to them because they know what they're doing, and this is what they need from me, okay? So, going into framing, right, as you can see, we have two frames. The first frame is for general buyers. Now, this is more, when I mean general buyers, I'm talking business to customer. So you're selling to an individual. So that could be fitness, that could be helping them make money, that could be a dating coach, that could be a life coach, it could be so many different things. I don't want to bore you, but it can be so many different things, right? So for example, a frame that you could use is, okay, so in this call, John, we're going to go a little bit deeper into your business, how your, let's say, fitness goals are working out right now, and what's really holding you back from getting you to where you want to be. If I feel like we can help, I'll walk you through exactly what we do and how it works. If not, that's fine too. I'm just going to point you in the right direction. Sound good? Now you're in, right? They're going to be like, yes, sounds good. And then you're in, right? So this is literally at the beginning of the call. So you do this literally after you're like, where are you based? How are you? Okay, cool. So basically, John, this whole call, and then bang into the frame. Then you get into the problem awareness after that, okay? But that is really all it is. It's super simple, and it's super effective, because otherwise, like I said, questions in the air, all of that jazz, which we do not want. Now, frame 2 is more for sophisticated buyers. You can do frame 1 literally in pretty much every industry. But for the more sophisticated buyers, you can actually just ask a question about, why they're on the call before framing, right? I typically like to do it after, simply because it allows me to just operate a little bit smoother and go into kind of that problem awareness and talking about the problem they currently have a little bit smoother. But you can ask this question before. So after you build that quick rapport, where are you based, how are you doing, how's your week been, you can ask a question like, okay, so before we get into, the rest of the call, I guess, what stuck out to you about the ad or the post that kind of brought you here today, right? Okay. They're going to probably talk about a goal that they have or something that they want. Usually they're going to answer that question with a benefit or a solution that you provide. Then you just say, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. The way this call is going to run is we basically make sure everything is tailored to you. So it makes the most sense for me to first understand what you're working on and where you're at. Then I can share only what's really relevant to you. Sound good? Cool. So the more sophisticated buyers, you are basically setting the tone that you are going to be providing them with a seriously tailored approach. Okay? So this is framing and the start of the call, building that rapport. Okay? Super simple. Couple tips, right, throughout framing and the start of the call. Speak slowly, right? Don't be 100 miles an hour, like speak slowly, right? If you get nervous, right? A lot of people get nervous before jumping on calls. If you let that affect you, right, you are going to speak quickly, stutter, and that's not what you want to do. You want to stay calm, right? Imagine you're speaking to a friend. We can go into, after we break this down, we could potentially talk about some like pre-call affirmations or rituals that you can do to kind of calm you down. But like a really simple one that I find extremely effective, and I know a lot of people do, it's this thing called like the Superman pose, where you stand up or sit up straight and you basically lift your shoulders and then roll them back as far as you can. And you just breathe in as much as you can through your nose and then breathe out with your mouth. You do that 10 times, right? Breathing in and breathing out. And then I trust you, like trust me, sorry, you will be so much more calm, and your tone will then allow you to speak slower and you will sound much more trustworthy. Okay? Because again, why do we need to sound trustworthy? We don't want to sound like a regular salesperson that is, sleazy, slick, whatever, that they think we potentially may be. We want to be calm. We want to show them that we're just here to help them reach their goals. That's all we are here to do. That is it. Okay? And at the end of the frame, a really good tip is like you can say, does that sound good? Does that sound fair? Right? What that does, it just allows you to have an agreement, right? And it lowers their resistance, lowers their guard as well. Okay? And pretty much, guys, starting the call, it doesn't, doing it right doesn't mean saying the perfect thing. It means showing up with the right presence, right? Showing up and showing the prospect that you're going to lead the call with clarity. And you need to make the prospect feel seen. Okay? That is how you do this well, simply. Okay? So from here, we're going to move into getting into the problem and how to discuss that, and basically where you learn a little bit more about their current situation and you start connecting the dots with why they're here, and you are basically laying out for them why they're here, and on top of that, what is really the problem and their pain that they're trying to fix. Simply. All right? I'll catch you guys tomorrow.